Ever underestimate the power of a good fit? From the wrong choice of costume to the embarrassing slip in front of millions of people, here are 20 wardrobe malfunctions that still haunt Golden Age actors.
Is that what you want?
Number 20. Closer. Remember where you were when Closer came out in 2004? Were you too young to appreciate the nuances and epic lines in the film? While some have compared Closer to a little more than cliched nonsense, others would strongly disagree. You see, this film is no small or ordinary romantic drama. For one, it has the brave and mature performance of an all-star cast to prove it. From Julia Roberts to Clive Owen, Natalie Portman, and Jude Law, this film will get you immersed in a world where characters light each other and still manage to knock each other down with their words. Natalie Portman plays the role of Alice, a dancer who is quite central to the plot of the film. Now, there is this scene where Portman had a minor wardrobe malfunction. It was during a moment when her character Alice was talking to Larry. At some point during the interaction, she reacted in a way that was obvious. If you look attentively, you'll see that her tank top begins to drop. Portman was likely very focused on her acting and probably didn't even know it happened. However, considering that viewers can see it clearly, then this scene should not have made the final cut of the movie. "19. The boots in Pride and Prejudice. The 2005 movie Pride and Prejudice will always be one for the books. One thing we love about it is that it is a timeless cult classic for all the right reasons. It is filled with gorgeous scenery of England that will leave you wanting to book a flight. The soundtrack is just as magnificent as its casting. Right from the start, the acting draws you in and helps you understand the distinct personalities of the proud Mr. Darcy and the prejudiced nature of Elizabeth Bennet. Keira Knightley plays one of the main characters, Elizabeth Bennet. Besides being prejudiced, Elizabeth is the central focus of this particular wardrobe malfunction. And this one is a mistake about not matching the time period of the film. In this scene, you can see Elizabeth sporting a pair of rubber boots. Don't see a problem? Well, let's begin with the fact that Pride and Prejudice is set in the early 1800s. The problem here is that these particular rubber boots were not invented until the early 1850s. That's the obvious error. People back then didn't have rubber boots. You might argue that this is a small mistake. Even worse, that it is not something the average viewer would pick up on. But hey, if it doesn't fit the time period of the story, then it doesn't. Wardrobe mistakes like this rob you of that immersive feel of being in the right time and place in a movie.
Romeo and Juliet. Oh, don't be shy. You make about the prettiest Juliet I've ever seen.
18. The pink dress in Singin' in the Rain. Did you watch Singin' in the Rain when you were younger and think it was just a good movie? Well, let us tell you all the reasons why it was a great movie. We mean, this film doesn't have a reputation for being the greatest musical of all time for nothing. For one, the dance numbers are mesmerizing, the perfect example of a sight for sore eyes. The love story in the plot is also just as timeless as the music. All songs were entertaining enough, but the titular song is perhaps the most memorable. The movie managed to be funny and upbeat, whilst also revealing difficult truths about the film industry in a digestible way. There really is no denying that Singin' in the Rain is one of the most iconic musicals ever made. Aside from Gene Kelly, Debbie Reynolds is one of the many stars in the musical. She starred as Kathy Selden. Now, her character is meant to be dressed in 1920s fashion, because this is a film set in the 1920s. However, in one scene, Kathy is seen wearing a pink outfit. Nothing wrong with pink, of course, but the dress seems more suited to the 1950s. Though gorgeous, the outfit is simply too stylish and flattering for the 1920s, meaning that it doesn't align with the film's historical setting. You can see how this little wardrobe error can briefly pull the audience out of the film's immersive world. Thankfully, this wardrobe miss does nothing to water down the impact of Singin' in the Rain as a beloved classic and one of the greatest musicals of all time. 17. The zippers in Amadeus. Whenever you are looking for a good watch, Amadeus will always be a good choice. With an 8.3 IMDb, 95% Rotten Tomatoes, 93% Metacritic rating, you are guaranteed a good time. When you dive in, you will see that the actors are well selected and as good as they come. And of course, there's music. The selection of Mozart's music in the movie is truly excellent. No matter how much or how little you know about classical music, you will enjoy the beauty of Mozart. The film is directed by Milos Forman, and it stars Tom Hulce as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Interestingly, this role earned him a nomination for Best Actor that year. Out of the 11 Oscar nominations the film got in total, it won 8. That is beyond impressive. Wondering what costume blunder such a movie would have made? Well, let's get into it. The movie itself tells the story of renowned composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Naturally, you can imagine it takes place in the late 1700s. Sadly, this made room for a notable costume era to take place. In the scene where some dancers are shown wearing colorful outfits, you would notice that some of their outfits came with zippers. This was a detail that did not fit the period. You see, zippers weren't invented until the early 1900s. The fact that it was more than a century after the movie's supposed setting is quite unsettling. The further back in time a movie is set, the harder it is to look past wardrobe mistakes like this. Seeing zippers in a film set in the 1700s greatly undermines the film's historical accuracy, especially when it was a mistake that could have been easily avoided with closer attention to detail. "16. The Lycra Shorts." Yes, the 2000s smash hit Gladiator. Yes, the 2000s smash hit Gladiator. Many love Gladiator for its drama and sword-fighting thrills, but as you are about to see, its costuming accuracy occasionally came up a little short. You heard that right. Even a movie as big as this was not immune from a dreadful wardrobe mistake. In the movie, Russell Crowe plays Maximus, a powerful Roman soldier who takes center stage in many intense battle sequences. The film does deliver greatly in the set design department. Set in ancient Rome, the film does a good job of transporting you into that world. The film went on to win the Best Picture award and is still loved amongst audiences today for its thrilling action and drama. There is this funny wardrobe mistake that will always be glaring to hawk-eyed fans. In several scenes where Maximus is fighting, brief glimpses from under his tunic are visible. Even more jarring is that he wears something that looks very out of place, or should we say, out of time. Instead of ancient Roman clothing, he's wearing a pair of Lycra shorts. If you look closely, you can see that these shorts are similar to what modern-day cyclists wear. Wouldn't you agree that this is definitely not something a Roman gladiator would have worn thousands of years ago? If anything, this mistake highlights the importance of a film's costume. For a movie that was intended to be big, they should have tried to be a little more accurate. As bad as this is, though, Gladiator is still a great watch. You can agree that it doesn't reduce the thrill and appeal of the film. From the intense sword fights to the empowering story, most fans have just chalked the business of the Lycra shorts up to a memorable mistake. 15. Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor is a 2001 romance film set during the time of an important historical event, none other than the 1941 Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. In the scene where the ladies are holding up their luggage with excitement, you would find that they are putting on beautiful dresses. Well, beautiful by the standards of the time, of course. However, a keen eye would catch something terribly wrong with the 1941 scene, and that would be the bare legs. The fact that their legs are on display beneath their dresses would have been a pretty scandalous sight at the time. The better way to go would have been longer dresses or the use of nylons. These were more appropriate social norms at the time. Even at a brief moment during the war when nylons may have been in short supply, we believe the women of 1941 would rather paint a seam on the back of their legs than to come out in anything less than modest. Whatever the case may be, bare legs would never have happened in the slightly conservative dress code of the era. This is the kind of small detail that movie producers should take into consideration especially when trying to throw it back to older and simpler times. 14. The Earpiece in Captain America. As the first of the Captain America trilogy, the first Avenger film gave everything that it was supposed to, maybe a little more if we are keeping it a buck. The fact that it has the real-world setting of World War II made it more relatable with a sense of importance. With the use of practical effects and CGI blending seamlessly to create an immersive experience, it is evident that the action scenes in the film are thrilling and well executed. However, there is one noticeable costume error in this film. To begin with, the film is set in the 1940s, in the midst of World War II. Now, the character called Jim Morita is a member of Captain America's team. In this scene, you can see him wearing a very modern military earpiece. The issue here is that the type of earpiece he's sporting didn't exist in the 1940s. In fact, it wasn't until the 2000s that it was developed. This stands out because the movie aims to recreate the 1940s setting. This piece of technology doesn't belong in the film, and it disrupts the period's authenticity. Viewers who are familiar with military technology would quickly spot this anachronism and realize it doesn't fit with the era. Considering it's a superhero fiction, it might even make one wonder if the character somehow had knowledge of future technology before the Avengers delved into time travel. But that is just not the case. The truth is that it's simply a mistake that went unnoticed during production. Even in a movie that involves superheroes and stretches the boundaries of reality, it's important for costumes and details to align with the period being portrayed. 13. A T-shirt in 1930s Raiders of the Lost Ark. Can anyone deny that Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the greatest films of all time? We believe it is one of the most impressive, most memorable, and most dynamically entertaining films anyone can ever experience. Critics have described it as a true out-of-body experience that facilitates a glorious imagination at a breakneck speed. In fact, by the time it is done, you are most likely left dizzy, breathless, and wrung out. First, the film takes you to the jungles of South America, the deserts of Egypt, an isolated island, and a long-forgotten tomb. You also get the sadistic Nazis, some slimy gravediggers, drunken Sherpas, and scheming Frenchmen for villains. That, of course, leaves you with Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford, and his girl Marion for the good guys. All of this makes for the perfect combination, but there is a humorous mistake somewhere in the mix. In a scene where Harrison Ford is perfectly embodying the Indiana Jones character, you will see something strange in the background. As you see, there is a crew member at the back dressed in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. The crew member is clearly dressed like someone from 1985. As such, he stands out in the film's 1930s setting. It is hard to imagine that such a mistake scaled through the final cutting of the film. We believe there were a lot of people involved in production, so how did this happen? You might think it's not a big deal, but to many, it is an out-of-place figure amidst the film's Nazi environment. If anything, it highlights the fact that even the smallest details are crucial when it comes to filmmaking.
Oh my God. What's the matter?
12. The unexpected view in Crank High Voltage. Crank High Voltage has been described as one of the most insane, hyperactive, over-the-top, frenetic, and crazy motion pictures you could ever see. It is basically a video game that came alive with human actors. It is so over-the-top that it threatens to abandon Earth and exist in a totally different plane. Remember when it came out, people either really loved it or hated it. It seemed like there was no in-between. And it wasn't hard to understand why. Many were offended by the violent nature of the film. From the language to the crazy dialogue and other rated 18 problems, it is not a movie for everyone. As you would expect, Jason Statham excelled at playing the straight man amid the chaos. Despite all the madness unfolding around him, he stood calm and unfazed, which is no small feat considering the film's wild nature. Now, you would think that such a high-energy action film would have no room for a wardrobe malfunction, but you would be wrong. There is a brief but noticeable slip involving Amy Smart, who plays the girlfriend of Jason Statham's character. In one scene, as a group of police officers tries to arrest them, Amy Smart's character jumps on the back of an officer. The camera angle at that moment revealed more than we would have liked to see. It happened so quickly that if you blink, you might miss it, but the angle and editing make it feel as though the viewer is seeing something unintended.
Sons of Scotland!
11. The Kilts in Braveheart. We bet you love this movie. We mean, what's not to love? The 1990 film Braveheart is loaded with outstanding battle scenes, incredible editing, and great dialogue. Even better, all of these things are rooted in a web of political strategy, philosophy, and an enlightening human experience of love, desire, passion, suffering, and identity. In this film, Mel Gibson presents the story of a Scottish hero fighting for freedom. One big thing this film gets wrong is the continuous presence of the kilts. Some of the male characters wear kilts. Now, if you don't know what these are, they're basically skirts that Scottish men are known for. During the battle sequences, the kilts sure looked cool, but considering that cool should not be the top priority for the production team, they failed on a scale of seismic proportions. You see, kilts did not exist in the 13th century, which is the time the movie is actually set. In fact, kilts were not even actually close to being around. It wasn't until centuries later, in the 1700s, that they were invented. As you can now understand, this error is beyond jarring. The movie's costume choice is just simply wrong for the time period. Kilts might have been more comfortable and, of course, more fun for the actors on set. But for keen-eyed fans of the show, it is far from being an accurate depiction of history. If you can forgive the historical inaccuracies, then this film would deliver a story so engaging and inspiring, you would be filled with hope.
Come on!
10. The Jockey Strap in Seabiscuit. In 2003, the lovable Tobey Maguire captured the hearts of audiences as Red Pollard, a jockey who rode the titular horse Seabiscuit. With 7 Academy Award nominations and over 70% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, you could say that this film did well with both audiences and film critics. If you really think about it, it isn't hard to imagine why. The film is packed with horse racing action, the plot is clear, and the score is unexpectedly impeccable. Even the cast outdid themselves. Tobey Maguire, who played Red Pollard, did a great job in his role of Seabiscuit's jockey. While watching, you could really feel a connection between him and the horse. Even 20 years after its theatrical release, Seabiscuit remains one of the best sports dramas to ever grace the screen. But considering it made this list, you already know it wasn't 100% perfect. Let's begin with the horse. Seabiscuit is a racing horse that lived from 1933 to 1947. That said, it should have been impossible for its jockey to be wearing a strapped helmet. We know what you're thinking. Horse riding without helmets? That's a disaster waiting to happen. But the truth is, strapped helmets were simply not invented yet. Needless to say, the movie might have done great in other areas, but it definitely did not do so well in terms of sticking to horse jockey fashion in the 1930s or 1940s. Maybe the costume department wanted to encourage safety, or maybe it was a fact that just flew over their heads. Whatever it was a brazenly inaccurate way to go, especially for such a magnificent film. 9. Galipoli. The legendary Mel Gibson was just 25 years old when he appeared in the 1981 war drama series titled Galipoli. This film has been described as the most haunting war films you could ever see. Peter Weir does a masterful job pulling us into the lives of very young men who are full of energy, vigor, and humor. Unfortunately, there's a moment in this film that shows the audience a little more than what was expected. This comes up in a scene where Gibson's character undresses to go for a swim with his fellow soldiers. As he dives into the water, there's a brief instance where you can see something that you're not supposed to. We imagine that this wasn't intended, so it caught many viewers off guard. Many have wondered why the filmmakers didn't edit out the shot. Considering the film had a PG rating, this unintentional wardrobe mishap shouldn't have made the final cut of the movie. Interestingly, this has become one of the most notable errors in film history. Though the moment only lasted for a split second, it became a memorable part of the movie. We mean, even mistakes can end up leaving a lasting impression. Eight, The Bear Terminator. Yes, the classic Terminator movies. First released in 1984, this film introduced a dystopian future in 2029. In this time, machines rule the world and a powerful cyborg killing machine is sent back to 1980 on a mission to kill a woman named Sarah Connor. It is an exciting, action-packed sci-fi thriller that holds up incredibly well even on the modern screen. For the time, the special effects are great. The action is explosive and seemingly never-ending. The plot is also good because despite the threads and twists, it is easy to follow. Many have thanked James Cameron for his flawless role as a director. We mean, this film really did set the tone for many future action sci-fi thrillers. The pacing, energy, and general tension was something refreshing. We can also go on about the casting, but one thing everyone agrees on is that Arnold was absolutely perfect as the cyborg. Some would even argue that it is still his best role. As the Terminator, he was a powerful and relentless robot from the future. Now, in the original Terminator film, there is a scene where Arnold's character, the T-800, arrives in the past completely, well, let's just say, devoid of clothes. The scene shows him approaching a group of punks to acquire clothing. You will notice that the lighting was kept dim to maintain a certain level of modesty. However, in the Blu-ray release of the film, there is a brief moment where Arnold's body can be seen as he walks. This detail wasn't as apparent in older versions of the movie, but the higher quality of Blu-ray has since brought it to the attention of some viewers. Though the moment is very quick, it has surprised a few people, especially those who hadn't seen the movie in a while. You can blame this unintentional wardrobe slip on the advancement of technology.
Not your baby sister anymore.
For the DEA, you ain't nothing but a honeypot.
What'd you just say?
Look, that's why you got the job, because you look good in a bathing suit.
All right, let's sit down.
7. The Slip-Up in Bad Boys 2. This 2003 action comedy is as good as any other. It is so good that you get to appreciate it more as it ages. There are over-the-top, death-defying stunts, the direction and writing was clever, not to mention the awesome pacing and cinematography. While the dialogue was quirky enough, the hilarious humor makes this film one of the most unappreciated sequels ever. There were a lot of intense action sequences. We mean, the shooting never really stopped and the explosions kept on coming. Even better, you could just feel that the comedic pairing of Smith and Lawrence was better in the sequel. If we could guess why, we would say it is because of the extra time they spent building on their off-screen relationship. However, there is a brief wardrobe slip-up that happens quickly in this action-packed movie. You might have been distracted by the extra explosions and fast-paced editing, as most viewers did not even catch this one. But if you paid extra attention, you would see it. This wardrobe malfunction can be seen when Marcus and Mike are making a frantic attempt to rescue Sid. Sid, portrayed by Gabrielle Union, is Marcus's sister and Mike's love interest. At some point, she finds herself in a dangerous confrontation with drug lord Johnny Tapia. During this tense scene, Sid throws her gun and falls, and for a split second, you can see the accidental slip. Thankfully, it is a fast moment that most people would miss if they weren't paying attention.
Pencil? What do you want a pencil for?
I want to balance it on the end of my nose.
You want to write something?
6. Cavemans Valentine. In a 2001 film, The Cavemans Valentine, Samuel L. Jackson delivers one of his most fascinating performances as Romulus Ledbetter. Haven't seen this film yet? Well, let us describe Romulus as a schizophrenic character who experiences moments of striking clarity amidst his mental disorder. The movie unfolds as his life takes a dramatic turn when he discovers the frozen body of a young man near his cave in a city park. While the police dismiss the death as a result of exposure to cold, Romulus is convinced there's more to the story. His determination to uncover the truth pulls him out of his isolated life and into the unpredictable world of New York's art scene. Known for playing tough and cool characters, Samuel L. Jackson surprises many with a scene where he appears without any clothes on. Although the scene is fleeting and not significant to the plot, it did happen. While Jackson has mentioned that he usually avoids such scenes, this was a rare exception. Fortunately for him, The Cavemans Valentine is not a widely recognized movie. It is also not as accessible as other films, especially in high-definition formats like Blu-ray. As a result, this moment hasn't gained much attention, and Jackson's reputation remains largely untouched by this brief scene. If you made it this far, do hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates from us. Five, the fallen zipper in Teen Wolf. This one takes us back to 1985. This was a fan-favorite coming-of-age film back in the day. In fact, this was the story that kicked off the beloved teenage werewolf genre. This movie introduces us to Scott, who is an average high school student trying to figure out his place in the world. Like many teens, Scott yearns for more out of life, but struggles with mediocrity. He dreams of excelling and standing out, but each time he snaps back to a life that is yet to offer him any big wins. But all of that changes when he discovers he is a werewolf. Though the film may come across as cheesy and a bit outdated, it will always be an enjoyable experience for viewers of all adult ages. As popular as it was back then, not everyone caught this blink-and-you'll-miss-it wardrobe malfunction in the movie. Now etched as an iconic blooper in Teen Wolf history is this scene where an extra is seen cheering for the basketball team. With a keen eye, you will see that the zipper is not fixed right. What makes this a blooper is how she quickly realizes this and tries to fix it by straightening the top. This mistake is a funny moment that somehow made it into the final cut of the movie. Despite this minor failure, the scene has since become infamous. From interviews to a reference on Family Guy, it has been widely shared across the internet.
Thank you for responding so promptly to my message.
I was most grateful to receive it.
4. The disposable diapers in Sense and Sensibility. Now let's talk about the 1995 movie Sense and Sensibility. Directed by Ang Lee, the film is based on Jane Austen's famous romance novel. With its plot and setting, it presents a beautiful film that takes you back to the 18th century. It has a strong cast, and everything is beautifully acted out in a way that portrays each character. Then there's the scenery. We can go on and on about how stunning and quaintly elegant everything was, but you get the idea. The original score by Patrick Doyle is truly a masterpiece. You could say that it captures the emotion and sense of the film in harmonious perfection. If you have read the book, you will quickly spot some considerable differences. However, the beauty of the cinematography, the poetic and sensible screenwriting, as well as the lovely music, more than makes up for the unnecessary changes in the film. There is one noticeable wardrobe error in the film, though, and just like many others on this list, this mistake takes you out of the film's historical setting. This is Mr. Palmer, a character played by Hugh Laurie, who isn't particularly kind or affectionate. At some point, there is a scene where he holds up a crying baby. If you looked close enough, you would spot something unusual. The baby is wearing a disposable diaper. See the problem? Disposable diapers didn't exist in the 18th century. For those who appreciate historical accuracy or pay attention to small details, this can be a bit jarring. We imagine that handling babies on set can be challenging and that the filmmakers likely opted for practicality. However, they could have done a better job of concealing the diaper to maintain the film's authenticity. We do hope that movies today learn a thing or two here. Even in the most carefully crafted films, some errors can still slip through.
May I help you? Edward Lewis.
Ah, yes, sir.
You see this young lady over there?
Yes.
Do you have anything in this shop as beautiful as she is?
Oh, yes. Oh, no. No, I'm saying we have...
3. Pretty Woman. Many have argued that this is not the most charming story out there, but still, no one can deny that it is one of those go-to movies for women. They have most likely seen this film a million times and can quote all of the lines from it. Still, they can't help but stop and watch every time it is on. Wondering why? Well, it is a story that all women secretly wish for. We mean Richard Gere in his prime was cute enough, but having a rich man take you into a store and let you buy whatever you want would also be a close second. But what truly appeals to most is the fairy tale ending with a man turning out to be better than they imagined him to be. The combination of killer chemistry and a banging soundtrack makes Pretty Woman a highly enjoyable film. We can't also forget the talented and appealing leads Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. Now let's focus on Julia Roberts. Famous for her role in Pretty Woman, she is one of Hollywood's most famous actresses. But even the iconic Roberts could not escape a little wardrobe malfunction. Towards the end of the film, there is a scene where her character wears a revealing nightgown. This was surprising for many viewers because Julia Roberts is known for avoiding bare scenes in her films. Typically, she uses a body double for close-up shots that involve her body. However, in this particular moment, you can see her face, confirming that it's truly her and not a double.
Come on, Steph, just sign it. I love you. I want you to. Just sign it.
What about you, Lise? Huh?
Sign it.
2. Tom Cruise's Right Moves. Remember All the Right Moves? It was a fan-favorite film for all the right reasons. For one, it isn't just another high school movie with funny principals, weird teachers, or cheerleaders. If you ever wanted to see an uncommonly grim coming-of-age drama that overcomes numerous cliches, then this film is for you. By having a more realistic approach to its characters and setting, this movie actually gets into the dynamics of the typical high school student. As a plus, you also get to experience Tom Cruise in one of his earliest works. He was just 21 years old, and you could tell that he was well on his way to becoming a big movie star. In this film, Tom Cruise plays a young football player who believes a sports scholarship is the only way to escape his dull life in his hometown. At some point in the film, there is a scene where he shares an intimate moment with Leah Thompson's character. During this scene, you will catch a glimpse of something very unexpected. On this one, we do kind of sympathize with him. This slip was likely unintentional, and it may have only proceeded to make the final cut because he didn't have much control over how the scene was shot. Remember, this was very early on in his acting career. While the film was rated R and intended for mature audiences, this quick glimpse of his body was still unexpected. Since Tom was just beginning his career, it's doubtful he could have requested changes at that time. One, Star Wars. This one takes us back to one of the classics, none other than Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Making it a classic is the good storytelling, good characters, and a satisfying ending to the story. For our last wardrobe malfunction, we will shine the light on Femi Taylor, who portrayed Ula, the green-skinned Twi'lek dancer. In the scene, roughly 14 minutes in, Ula is performing at Jabba the Hutt's palace when she tugs on the chain around her neck. While this causes her to stumble, her top slips in the process. The lighting may be a little dim, and the incident does happen quickly, but it is still hard to miss if you're paying close attention. What makes this moment even more intriguing is that George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, made numerous updates to the films over the years. He made new content and fixed different elements that he felt needed improvement. Yet, despite all these changes, this particular wardrobe malfunction remained untouched. Many are surprised that it wasn't edited out, especially considering how much Lucas altered other aspects of the movies. Some fans speculate that Lucas is yet to spot the mistake, while others believe that he is well aware of it and has chosen to leave it in there. Whether it was a slip-up or a deliberate choice, this small blooper has become a point of discussion and a hidden gem for Star Wars enthusiasts everywhere. Familiar with any of these scenes? Do share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. You also can't miss the next video on screen.